Grandmother's hands trembled slightly, a flicker of reluctance passing through her clouded eyes. "Still waiting?" she asked softly, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. I lowered my gaze to the half-jade bangle on my wrist, my fingertips gently tracing the broken edge. This was the only keepsake Mother had left me. The other half 3 years ago, I'd placed it in Crown Prince Xiaomian's hands myself. No more waiting. I lifted my head, my tone as calm as if discussing which tea to serve. "Grandmother, send word to the palace. Tell them the Shen family wishes to dissolve this engagement." Grandmother shot to her feet. "What did you say? 7 postponements?" I counted them off on my fingers. The excuses ranged from border conflicts to the Empress Dowager's illness, from court mourning to inauspicious celestial omens. "Grandmother, it has been 3 years. If he truly wanted to marry me, how could there be so many coincidences?" Footsteps sounded outside. Steward Li hurried in, breathless. "Madam, Miss Eunuch Wu from the Crown Prince's residence has arrived with yet another notice postponing the wedding." I smiled. "That makes 8, doesn't it?" Eunuch Wu entered with a face full of obsequious smiles, clutching a brocade box. "Miss Shen, His Highness says there has been another urgent report from the border. As heir apparent, he cannot possibly hold a grand wedding at such a time. He begs the Shen family's understanding. This is a small token of His Highness's regard. That won't be necessary." I cut him off, producing a silk-wrapped bundle from my sleeve. "Please trouble Eunuch Wu to return this. Tell him the Shen family appreciates the gesture. As for the marriage, my grandmother will personally visit the palace to explain matters to Her Majesty the Empress." Eunuch Wu's face changed color. "Miss, what do you mean by this?" I unwrapped the silk. Inside lay the half-jade bangle gleaming softly in the candlelight. 3 years ago, I said we would marry when the bangle was made whole again. It seems that day will never come. "Miss Shen," Eunuch Wu's voice cracked. "But this, His Highness personally promised." I laughed lightly. "Eunuch Wu, you've served at the Crown Prince's side long enough to understand that circumstances change. Please inform His Highness that the Shen family has no desire to cling to power through marriage. This engagement ends here." Cold sweat beaded on Eunuch Wu's forehead. He understood perfectly well the weight of these words. Though the Shen family had merchant origins, 3 generations of accumulated wealth had made them rich enough to rival nations. They controlled the grain transport routes and salt iron trade throughout Jiangnan. What had attracted the Crown Prince in the first place if not the Shen family's silver and influence? Now, with the Shen family initiating the dissolution, word would spread about the Crown Prince's reputation. "Miss, please reconsider," Eunuch Wu was practically begging. "His Highness truly has his difficulties. I understand his difficulties perfectly well." I rose, looking down at the kneeling eunuch. "He simply feels a merchant's daughter isn't worthy of the heir apparent's position. He has someone else in mind. Eunuch Wu, go back and tell the Crown Prince that the one thing I, Shen Qingqi, have never lacked is backbone." Grandmother spoke then, her voice carrying an unprecedented chill. "Steward Li, show our guest out. Tomorrow morning, prepare the carriage. I am going to the palace." Strategic commentary. Shen Qingqi has just executed a critical move, actively tearing up the contract. In traditional narratives, this is called impulsiveness. But in game theory, this is called precise identification of the loss, cutting line. Strategic commentary. Shen Qingqi has just executed a critical move, scientifically tearing up the contract. In traditional narratives, this is called impulsiveness. But in game theory, this is called asterisk precise identification of the loss, cutting line. Asterisk. As Eunuch Wu was escorted out, he kept looking back, seemingly wanting to say something, but ultimately swallowed his words. The moment the door closed, I heard grandmother release a long sigh. "Sir, have you truly thought this through? Once you break this engagement, the gossip outside, grandmother." I turned and grasped her hand. "I've thought it through. Rather than become a crown princess in name only, better to make a clean break. Besides," I paused, something else flickering in my eyes. "Besides what?" Grandmother caught the unfinished thought. "Besides, some accounts need settling." My voice was soft. "The Crown Prince's 7 postponements, have we investigated the reasons behind each one?" Grandmother froze. You mean border reports, the Empress Dowager's illness, court mourning celestial omens. I enunciated each word. But grandmother, do you know? The third postponement coincided with the day Consort Shu hosted a poetry gathering for the Crown Prince at his residence. The fifth postponement was when the Crown Prince was spotted boating with Lin Wangqing, daughter of the Minister of War. Grandmother's face went ashen. How do you know? I haven't been idle these 3 years. I produced a stack of papers from my sleeve. Steward Li helped me gather intelligence. Look, grandmother, this is what your granddaughter's fiance's been doing. Grandmother's hands shook as she took the papers. The more she read, the paler she became. Finally, she slammed them on the table. Outrageous, precisely. I smiled faintly. The night watch drum sounded outside. Second watch. I walked to the window, gazing at the brightly lit courtyards of the Shen residence, suddenly remembering 3 years ago when the Crown Prince first came to propose. He'd been full of vigor then, promising to make me the most honored woman in the realm. I'd believed him then. How absurd. The next morning, before grandmother's carriage could leave the residence, the palace sent someone first. This time it wasn't Eunuch Wu, but a senior palace attendant from the Empress's service, followed by a squad of Imperial guards. Madam Shen, Miss Shen, Her Majesty the Empress summons you both to the palace. The attendant's face was expressionless, but her eyes held scrutiny. Grandmother and I exchanged glances that was remarkably quick. On the way to the palace, grandmother lowered her voice. Did you do something else last night? Number, I answered honestly. I merely had Steward Li spread word that the Shen family might dissolve the engagement with the Crown Prince. You wretched girl. Grandmother was both angry and anxious. Do you know what will happen when that news spreads? It is better if it spreads, I interrupted. Grandmother, surely you don't expect the Crown Prince to initiate the dissolution. He never would. He'd just keep dragging it out, enjoying the Shen family's support while searching for better prospects. The carriage jolted through the palace gates. In Kunning Palace, the Empress was taking her morning meal. Seeing us enter, she set down her chopsticks and dismissed the surrounding attendants. Madam Shen, Miss Shen. The Empress's voice carried authority tinged with weariness. I hear the Shen family wishes to dissolve the engagement. Grandmother was about to speak, but I spoke first. Your Majesty, that is correct. The Empress's eyes sharpened. The reason? His Highness has postponed the wedding 7 times. This commoner believes His Highness's heart has changed. Better to end it now and allow His Highness to choose a more suitable match. I was neither servile nor overbearing. This commoner comes from merchant stock and was never truly worthy of the heir apparent's position. These 3 years of His Highness's favor have been honor enough, not worthy. The Empress laughed coldly. Who came bearing betrothal gifts to our door? Now you say you are not worthy. Whose face are you slapping? I wouldn't dare. I lowered my head. This commoner simply feels that forced marriages are better avoided. Forced, the Empress's voice rose sharply. Are you saying the Crown Prince forced you? I raised my head, meeting the Empress's gaze directly. Your Majesty sees clearly. These 3 years, His Highness has postponed the wedding 7 times. Each time the reason differed, but the result was the same. Though this commoner is slow-witted, I understand what willing in spirit but weak in execution means. Rather than become a decorative figurehead later, better to be forthright now. Insolent, the Empress slammed the table. Do you think this is some place where you can come and go, dissolve engagements at will? Your Majesty, please calm yourself. Grandmother quickly knelt. It is this old woman's fault for failing to educate her properly. Rise. The Empress cut her off, but her eyes remained fixed on me. Shen Qingxi, do you know this marriage was arranged by the late Emperor himself? Now you say you'll dissolve it. Where does that leave the late Emperor's memory? My heart sank, but I kept my composure. This commoner dares not forget the late Emperor's grace. Precisely because of this, I dare not fail his expectations. I spoke deliberately. What the late Emperor valued was the Shen family's loyalty to the court, our support for His Highness. These 3 years, the Shen family has never slackened. Military provisions for the border, grain for transport. The Shen family has given everything. I paused, my tone growing firmer. But marriage is a lifelong matter. If His Highness's heart belongs to another, wouldn't my insistence harm him? Your Majesty, wouldn't you agree? The Empress stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly asked, "You say the Crown Prince's heart belongs to another?" This commoner dares not speak carelessly. I lowered my eyelids. But these 3 years of experience forced me to wonder. Evidence. I produced the stack of papers from my sleeve. This is intelligence this commoner has gathered over 3 years. Your Majesty may examine it. The Empress took them, her expression darkening with each page. After a long silence, she threw the papers on the table. Based on these marketplace rumors, you want to dissolve the engagement. Rumors aren't always false, I said calmly, Your Majesty. This commoner is but a simple woman. I have reputation, family background, and wealth. But I don't want a husband whose heart isn't with me. Fine, whose heart isn't with you. The Empress laughed coldly. Since that is the case, I must ask, where is your heart? The question was abrupt. I froze. Shen Qingqi. The Empress stood, walking towards me step by step. Do you think? I don't know. These past 6 months, you've been frequenting the cloud-gazing tower in the Western District. That establishment belongs to the Prince of Genbei. My heart jumped, but I maintained composure. This commoner visits the cloud-gazing tower for business. Busyness, the Empress sneered. What business requires an unbetrothed crown princess to go there in the dead of night? Your Majesty, grandmother's face changed drastically. There must be some misunderstanding. The Empress cut her off. Madam Shen, I advise you both to think carefully. After dissolving the engagement with the Crown Prince, who else can you latch on to? The Prince of Genbei. She laughed mockingly. That one also commands troops and dominates the borderlands. But he is a widower. The Shen family has quite the appetites, spurning the Crown Prince on one side whilst entangling yourself with the Prince of Genbei on the other. Your Majesty, mind your words. I finally couldn't restrain myself. This commoner's relationship with the Prince of Genbei is entirely innocent. If Your Majesty insists on such accusations, please provide evidence. Evidence, the Empress said coldly. Then dare you swear before me that you have no illicit relationship with the Prince of Genbei? I was about to speak when a eunuch's shrill voice came from outside. His Majesty, the Emperor, arrives. Strategic commentary. The Empress believes she is grasped. Shen Qingxi's fatal weakness. Frequent visits to the Prince of Genbei's property. In the feudal power structure, this is sufficient grounds for but notice Shen Qingxi's response strategy. She doesn't rush to defend herself, but waits for higher authority to intervene. Let your opponent think they hold the advantage, when in reality you've already shifted the battlefield to a higher dimension. Strategic commentary. The Empress believes she has grasped Shen Qingxi's fatal weakness. Frequent visits to the Prince of Genbei's property. In the feudal power structure, this is sufficient grounds for accusations of illicit relations with an external minister. But notice Shen Qingxi's response strategy, for she doesn't rush to defend herself, but waits for higher authority to intervene. Let your opponent think they hold the advantage, when in reality you've already shifted the battlefield to a higher dimension. Asterisk, everyone froze. Why would His Majesty come to Cunning Palace at this hour? Grandmother and I quickly knelt in obeisance. The Emperor's face was thunderously dark as he entered. He waved for us to rise. His gaze sweeping between the Empress and me, I could hear the quarreling from my study. The Emperor's voice was low but carried immense authority. What is going on, Your Majesty? The Empress stepped forward. The Shen family wishes to dissolve the engagement. Dissolve? The Emperor turned to me. Shen Qingqi explained. I took a deep breath. Your Majesty, this commoner doesn't wish to dissolve the engagement. I have no choice. His Highness has postponed the wedding 7 times, each time with a reason, but this commoner, in her foolishness, cannot see any genuine intention to marry. So you've come to make a scene. I wouldn't dare. I raised my head, meeting the Emperor's eyes directly. This commoner simply doesn't wish to delay His Highness, nor to wrong herself. Your Majesty, when you arranged this marriage, you hoped the Shen family would support the Crown Prince. These 3 years, the Shen family has done exactly that, but marriage isn't a transaction, is it? The emperor stared at me for a long time, then suddenly asked, "Do you know why the crown prince postponed the wedding?" I froze. The first time was indeed due to border reports. The emperor spoke slowly. The second time was because the empress fell ill. The third time, he paused, glancing at the empress. The third time was because the crown prince heard that Miss Shen was frequently visiting the cloud-gazing tower. He wanted to investigate. My mind went blank. The subsequent times were all for the same reason. The emperor continued, "The crown prince doesn't not want to marry you. He is uncertain of your intentions. Shen Qingqi, can you tell me what you were doing at the cloud-gazing tower?" I opened my mouth, suddenly unsure how to explain. I did go to the cloud-gazing tower to see the Prince of Jembe, but not in the way the Empress suggested, rather, Your Majesty. I took a deep breath, deciding on honesty. This commoner went to the cloud-gazing tower to see the Prince of Jembe's heir. The heir, the Emperor frowned. Yes, Xiao Jin, heir to the Prince of Jembe, is my mother's nephew. I spoke deliberately. Before mother married, she entrusted half the Shen family business to her natal family. These years, the heir has helped manage the border trade routes. This commoner went to the cloud-gazing tower to reconcile accounts. The words fell like a thunderclap. What did you say? The Empress's voice changed. Your mother was from the Prince of Jembe's household. Yes, I said frankly. My mother was Lady Xiao, sister to the Prince of Jembe. But mother didn't want her natal family's status to create pressure for father, so she never mentioned it. These years my maternal family has kept a low profile. The emperor's expression shifted repeatedly. The Prince of Jembe commanded troops and dominated the borderlands. The Shen family was wealthy enough to rival nations and control Jiangnan's lifelines. If these two families were actually related, why didn't you say this before? The emperor asked gravely. Because of mother's dying wish. I smiled bitterly. She didn't want the Shen family entangled in court politics, but it seems silence was futile. Then why reveal it now? The Empress demanded. Because if I am dissolving the engagement, everything should be clear. I looked at the Empress. Your Majesty suspected an illicit relationship between this commoner and the Prince of Jembe. I had to explain. But I never imagined His Highness postponed the wedding 7 times because he suspected me. I turned to the Emperor. Your Majesty, since His Highness doesn't trust this commoner, this engagement should definitely end. Forced marriages are meaningless. Shen Qingqi, the Empress, trembled with rage. You are threatening us. I wouldn't dare, I said calmly. This commoner merely states facts. The Shen family and the Prince of Jembe's household are related with this connection. Would His Highness feel secure with me as Crown Princess? Would Your Majesty? The question was blunt but struck at the heart of the matter. The Emperor fell silent. After a long pause, he suddenly laughed. Well played, Shen Qingqi. I underestimated you. Your Majesty, the Empress tried to speak. Enough, the Emperor waved dismissively. This marriage is suspended for now. I will investigate the relationship between the Shen family and the Prince of Jembe's household. As for the Crown Prince, he paused. Have him come see me himself. Your Majesty, the Empress panicked. This engagement cannot be dissolved. The late Emperor's decree. The late Emperor's decree spoke of a marriage alliance, not specifically that the Crown Prince must marry Shen Qingqi. The Emperor said coldly. The Crown Prince has several younger brothers, doesn't he? My heart sank at these words. What did the Emperor mean, if not the Crown Prince, then another prince? Your Majesty, I suddenly spoke. This commoner has something to say, if I may speak. The Shen family is willing to support the court and contribute to the borderlands. I enunciated each word, but we will not become anyone's chess piece. Regarding this marriage, if His Highness the Crown Prince is sincere, this commoner is willing to wait. If His Highness has no such intention, this commoner will never force the matter. As for the other princes, I raised my head, meeting the Emperor's gaze directly. Forgive this commoner's bluntness, but the Shen family recognizes only the Crown Prince named in the late Emperor's decree. No one else. The Empress's face went deathly pale. But the Emperor laughed, spirited. He nodded. Very well. Let the Crown Prince come explain himself. The Shen family representatives will remain here. Strategic commentary the third, the final gambit before counterattack. Notice this critical move. Shen Qingxi voluntarily disclosed the relationship between the Shen family and the Prince of Zhenbei's household. In conventional, but in game theory, this is called strategic release of deterrent information. Strategic commentary the third, the final gambit before counterattack. Notice this critical move. Shen Qingqi voluntarily disclosed the relationship between the Shen family and the Prince of Zhenbei's household in conventional thinking. This is revealing your hand. But in game theory, this is called asterisk. Asterisk strategic release of deterrent information. Asterisk, we were arranged in a side hall to wait. Palace servants brought tea and refreshments, but no one had any appetite. Grandmother clutched my hand, her voice trembling. Sia, why did you never tell me about your mother's background? Before Mother died, she instructed me never to mention her natal family unless absolutely necessary. I said softly. She said the Prince of Zhenbei's household was too prominent, and close association would bring disaster to the Shen family. But today I had no choice. I smiled bitterly. If I didn't explain clearly, the rumors about the Prince of Zhenbei and me would become even more sordid. Rather than be misunderstood, better to speak plainly. Grandmother sighed. But now that you've revealed it, His Majesty and the Empress will be even more wary. The Shen family is already wealthy enough to rival nations. And now, with the Prince of Zhenbei's power added, that is precisely why I said the Shen family won't be anyone's chess piece. I interrupted. Grandmother, don't you find it strange? The Crown Prince postponed the wedding 7 times. Each reason different, but not once did he actually ask what I thought. Grandmother froze. You mean he never intended to marry you from the start? Number, I analyzed calmly. Or rather, he wanted to marry not me as a person, but the Shen family's influence. When he discovered my connection to the Prince of Zhenbei's household, he began to hesitate, afraid I was a chess piece the prince had planted beside him. But you are not. Of course I am not. I smiled. But his suspicion is enough. Grandmother, with such a marriage, do you think I'd have good days after entering the Crown Prince's residence? Grandmother fell silent. Just then footsteps sounded outside. A eunuch entered to announce, Madam Shen, Miss Shen, His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived. His Majesty requests your presence. I straightened my robes and went with Grandmother to the Imperial study. Crown Prince Xiao Miyan stood in the center of the study, his back straight. Hearing footsteps, he turned around. The moment our eyes met, I saw complex emotions flash through his. Shen Qingxi, he spoke, his voice low. You want to dissolve the engagement? Yes, I didn't hesitate. The reason? Your Highness knows it in your heart, I said calmly. 7 postponements, each with a reason, but not one was truly for me. If your Highness genuinely wanted to marry me, why wait until today? I was investigating your relationship with the Prince of Zhenbei. The Crown Prince suddenly raised his voice. You frequented the cloud-gazing tower, going there in the dead of night. What was I supposed to think? So your Highness suspected me, I countered. Did your Highness ever consider simply asking me directly? Did your Highness ever wonder why I went to the cloud-gazing tower? Then tell me, why did you go? For the Shen family's business, for border provisions to support you. I spoke deliberately. Xiao Jin, heir to the Prince of Zhenbei, is my cousin. These years, the Shen family's smooth supply of border provisions depended entirely on his local coordination. If your Highness doesn't believe me, you are welcome to investigate. The Crown Prince was stunned. Your Highness suspected me. I don't blame you, I continued. But your Highness's method of suspicion was to postpone the wedding repeatedly, making me a laughingstock in the capital. Does your Highness know what people have been saying about me these 3 years? I paused, my voice tinged with mockery. They say Miss Shen is reaching above her station with the Crown Prince, that he looks down on her. They say no matter how wealthy the Shen family's daughter is, she is not worthy of the heir apparent's position. They say, enough. The Crown Prince cut me off. I didn't know they were saying such things. You didn't know. I laughed coldly. Or you didn't care, your Highness, you wanted to investigate me. I understand. But you could have done so privately, sent people to watch. Why use postponing the wedding as your method? Were you investigating me or announcing to everyone that you are dissatisfied with this marriage? The Crown Prince's expression shifted repeatedly. Shen Qingqi, Your Highness needn't explain. I cut him off, turning to the Emperor. Your Majesty, this commoner will speak plainly today. I am willing to dissolve this engagement, not because I've latched onto the Prince of Zhenbei's household, but because these 3 years have taught me that some things cannot be forced. You, the Crown Prince, trembled with anger. Your Highness. I looked at him, my eyes devoid of any lingering attachment. This commoner agreed to this marriage because of the late Emperor's decree, because of trust in Your Highness. But these 3 years have left me utterly disappointed. Rather than become a resentful couple later, better to part ways cleanly now. Part ways cleanly? The Crown Prince sneered. Do you think after dissolving this engagement you'll be able to marry anyone else? That needn't concern Your Highness, I said calmly. Even if this commoner never marries, I won't become a meaningless ornament. You, the Crown Prince pointed at me, his hand shaking. The Emperor spoke then. Enough, Crown Prince, return for now. I need to consider this matter carefully. Father Emperor. Withdraw. The Crown Prince bit his lip but ultimately turned and left. After his departure, the Emperor looked at me with a hint of appreciation. Shen Qingqi, you certainly have courage. I wouldn't dare, I said. This commoner simply refuses to wrong herself. Refuses to wrong yourself, the Emperor smiled. Then what do you want? I took a deep breath. This commoner requests Your Majesty issue a decree dissolving the engagement with the Crown Prince. Grandmother's face changed at these words. The Emperor was silent for a long time, then suddenly asked, What if I refuse? Then this commoner will take Buddhist vows, I said calmly. Either way, it is a lifetime. This commoner would rather live with lamp and scripture than endure others' moods. The Emperor stared at me for ages, then suddenly burst into laughter. Excellent, rather live with lamp and scripture, Shen Qingqi. You've won. The Emperor's decree came swiftly. 3 days later, everyone in the capital knew the engagement between the Crown Prince and Miss Shen had been dissolved. The decree's wording was clever, citing incompatible horoscopes and inopportune timing. But anyone with eyes could see the Shen family had initiated the dissolution. Rumors flew thick and fast. Some said the Shen family had latched onto the Prince of Zhenbei's household and now looked down on the Crown Prince. Others said the Crown Prince had discovered Shen Qingqi's improper conduct and initiated the dissolution. Still others claimed the Emperor actually wanted to bestow Shen Qingqi on another prince. But regardless of the gossip outside, the Shen residence was unusually quiet. 3 days after the dissolution, I was feeding fish in the courtyard when Steward Li rushed over. Miss, the Prince of Zhenbei's heir has arrived. My hand jerked, scattering fish food everywhere. Xiao Jin had come. When I reached the front hall, I indeed saw a young man in a deep blue brocade robe sitting and drinking tea. Hearing footsteps, he looked up, revealing a refined, handsome face. Cousin, he stood, his face carrying a gentle smile. It has been too long. Cousin, I curtsied. What brings you here? I heard you dissolved the engagement. Xiaojin was direct. I came to see how you are. I am well. I sat across from him. But cousin, coming to the Shen residence at this time, aren't you afraid of gossip? What is there to fear? Xiaojin smiled. We're cousins, our interaction is perfectly normal. Besides, since you've already made our relationship public, what is left to fear? I was silent for a moment. I apologize for revealing our maternal family's affairs without permission. It is fine that you did, Xiaojin waved dismissively. Hiding it would only lead to more misunderstandings, however. He paused, his expression growing serious. Cousin, have you truly thought this through? After dissolving the Crown Prince's engagement, I've thought it through very clearly. I interrupted. Cousin, rather than marry someone who suspects and guards against me, I'd rather never marry, Xiaojin sighed. But have you considered what comes next after dissolving this engagement? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Cousin, Xiaojin suddenly grew earnest. I have a proposal. Will you hear it? I looked at him, suddenly feeling an ominous premonition. Marry me. Xiao Jin spoke deliberately. Become the princess consort of Jembei's heir. I froze. Cousin, let me finish, Xiao Jin interrupted. Though we're cousins, the relationship is distant enough that marriage is permissible. If you marry me, it benefits both the Shen family and the prince of Jembei's household. The Shen family's trade routes will flow more smoothly, and the prince's household gains the Shen family's support. More importantly, he looked at me, his eyes carrying a touch of tenderness. I won't suspect or guard against you like the crown prince did. Cousin, I know you, and I trust you. My mind was in turmoil. Xiao Jin's proposal wasn't unreasonable. We'd known each other since childhood, understood each other thoroughly. Marrying him would indeed be more secure than marrying anyone else. Moreover, the prince of Jembei's household commanded troops and dominated the borderlands. With their backing, the Shen family would be more stable, but cousin, I asked, do you know what people are saying about us? I don't care. Xiao Jin was unconcerned. Rumors stop with the wise. Those who care about such gossip aren't worth considering. Cousin, you should think about yourself. I was silent for a long time, then suddenly asked, Cousin, do you genuinely want to marry me, or is this for the family alliance? Xiao Jin froze, then smiled. Cousin, are you testing me? I simply want the truth. I looked at him. Cousin, I don't want to experience another misplaced trust. Xiao Jin's smile faded. He looked at me seriously. Cousin, I won't lie. Initially, it was indeed for the family alliance. But these years watching you suffer in the capital, watching the crown prince postpone the wedding repeatedly, he paused, I felt for you. The words were direct. But I felt no joy, cousin, I said softly. Sympathy and affection aren't the same thing. I know, Xiao Jin nodded. But cousin, marriage has never been only about affection. Compatible backgrounds, mutual support, reciprocal trust, these matter more. I may not be able to give you earth-shattering romance, but I can give you a stable life, reliable support. I looked at him, my heart a tangle of emotions. Xiao Jin was right. Marriage wasn't only about affection, but after the crown prince's betrayal, I'd lost all romantic illusions about marriage, cousin, I stood. I appreciate your sentiment, but let me think about this matter, all right. Xiao Jin also rose. Fine, take your time thinking. But cousin, don't think too long. Many in the court are watching like tigers eyeing prey. You can't fight them alone. After he left, I stood there alone, my mind in chaos. That evening, grandmother came to find me. Sir, what do you think of Xiao Jin's proposal? What does grandmother think? I countered. Grandmother was silent for a moment. From the family's perspective, this marriage is very suitable. But from your personal perspective, sire, do you like Xiao Jin? I shook my head. Number. Then what are you hesitating about? Because besides marrying him, I seem to have no better options. I smiled bitterly. After dissolving the crown prince's engagement, who else in the capital would dare marry me? Grandmother grasped my hand. Foolish child, you are still young. There is no rush. But grandmother, I don't want to bring trouble to the Shen family. I looked at her. The dissolution has already made the Shen family a subject of gossip. If I never marry, then don't marry, grandmother was resolute. The Shen family's holdings will all be yours eventually. You alone can still support the Shen family. Warmth flooded my heart. But before I could speak, commotion suddenly erupted outside. Steward Li burst in, his face ashen. Madam, miss, terrible news. Someone from the Crown Prince's residence has come, saying the Crown Princess has had an accident. Grandmother and I exchanged glances. Crown Princess. When did the Crown Prince acquire a princess? Steward Li was breathless. Just this afternoon, His Majesty issued a decree conferring Miss Lin Wangqing, daughter of the Minister of War, as Crown Princess. But just now, Miss Lin fell into the water in the Crown Prince's residence courtyard. My mind went blank. Lin Wangqing. Wasn't she the woman who went boating with the Crown Prince during the 5th postponement? How is she? Grandmother asked. They pulled her out, but her condition isn't good. Steward Lai lowered his voice. They pulled her out, but her condition isn't good. Steward Lai lowered his voice. People from the Crown Prince's residence say that before Miss Lin fell into the water, she kept muttering your name. My heart sank, muttering my name. Yes, Steward Lai continued. They suspect that you, enough. Grandmother slammed the table. Utter nonsense. Our seer was in the residence all day. How could she possibly have gone to the Crown Prince's residence to harm anyone? Madam, that is exactly what I told them, Steward Li said hastily. But the people from the Crown Prince's residence don't believe it. They say they must see Miss. I stood, then I'll see them. Sir. Grandmother grabbed me. Have you lost your mind? This is obviously a trap, which is precisely why I must go, I said calmly. If I don't, it only confirms their suspicions. Don't worry, Grandmother. I know what I am doing. By the time we reached the Crown Prince's residence, it was already deep into the night. The residence was ablaze with lights, people everywhere. The moment I entered, I saw Crown Prince Xiao Mian standing in the courtyard, his face livid. Shen Qingqi, you dare show your face? His eyes blazed with fury. Your Highness summoned me. How would this commoner dare not come? I was neither servile nor overbearing. I heard Miss Lin had an accident. This commoner is quite concerned. How is Miss Lin now? You have the gall to ask. An elderly woman beside the Crown Prince rushed forward, pointing at my nose. It was you. You are the one who harmed my daughter. I recognized her. The Minister of War's wife, madam, mind your words. I stepped back. This commoner was in my residence all day. How could I have harmed anyone? Before my daughter fell into the water, she kept muttering your name. The minister's wife wailed. She said it was you. You pushed her into the water. Absurd, I said coldly. Madam, when Miss Lin fell into the water, where was this commoner? Did anyone see me at the Crown Prince's residence? You must have bribed someone in the residence. Evidence, I countered. If Madam cannot produce evidence, this is slander. Shen Qingxi. The Crown Prince spoke then. Did you send something to Wang Qing today? My heart jumped, but my face remained composed. What does your Highness mean? People in the residence say that this afternoon, a maid claiming to be from the Shen household delivered a box of pastries to Wang Qing. The Crown Prince enunciated each word. After Wang Qing ate the pastries, the accident occurred. This commoner did indeed have pastries sent, I said frankly. Hearing that Miss Lin had become Crown Princess as the former betrothed, it was appropriate for this commoner to send congratulatory gifts. But was there something wrong with those pastries? Whether there is something wrong with those pastries, whether there is something wrong, we'll know after examination. The Crown Prince waved his hand. Someone brought forward a box containing half-eaten pastries. I glanced at them, my heart sinking further. The pastries were indeed ones I'd had sent, but they should have been ordinary osmanthus cakes. How could there be a problem? If your Highness doesn't believe me, have someone examine them carefully, I said. The pastries this commoner sent were absolutely fine. Then dare you eat one right now? The minister's wife suddenly demanded. I froze. Do you dare? She pressed. If there is truly nothing wrong, eat one right now. I looked at the pastries in the box, my mind racing. If there really was something wrong, eating one would harm me. But if I didn't eat it, the suspicion would be confirmed, gamble or not. Just then, a voice came from outside the gate. No need for her to eat it. This prince will try it. Everyone turned. Prince Xiao Jingyu of Zhenbei strode in, Xiao Jin following behind. Prince of Zhenbei. The Crown Prince's face changed. What brings you here? I heard Miss Shen of the Shen family was suspected of harming someone. This prince came to see. Xiao Jingyu walked to my side and picked up a pastry. These pastries are problematic. Let this prince taste them. Your Highness, you mustn't. The minister's wife tried to stop him, but it was too late. Xiao Jingyu had already eaten the pastry. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would happen. A quarter hour passed. Xiao Jingyu showed no adverse reaction. It seems these pastries are fine. He wiped his hands. Looking at the Crown Prince, Your Highness, your Crown Princess's fall into the water probably wasn't because of the pastries. The Crown Prince's expression shifted repeatedly. Then Shen Qingqi must have bribed someone in the residence. The minister's wife continued her accusations. Bribed someone in the residence. Xiao Jingyu laughed coldly. Then why not investigate which new people have entered the Crown Prince's residence recently? He looked at the Crown Prince. This prince has heard that your highness recently took in several new servants. Among them is one who was originally a palace maid serving Her Majesty the Empress. The crown prince's face changed. Your highness, what do you mean by this? Nothing in particular, Xiao Jingyu said mildly. I simply find it rather coincidental that Miss Lin had an accident so soon after entering the residence. His words stunned everyone. What did he mean? Was he suggesting someone deliberately harmed Lin Wangqing? And this person might be connected to the Empress? The crown prince's face went completely ashen. Guards, he said through gritted teeth. Bring that newly arrived palace maid here. When the maid was brought in, she was already trembling with fear. Your highness, spare me, she knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly. Speak. The crown prince looked down at her. Was Miss Lin's fall into the water your doing? This servant wouldn't dare. The maid wept, wouldn't dare. Xiao Jingyu sneered. Then do you dare say who sent you to the crown prince's residence? The maid's whole body shuddered. She dared not speak. Still won't tell the truth. The crown prince kicked her. Who sent you? It was, the maid trembled. It was Her Majesty the Empress. The words fell like a thunderbolt. The crown prince's face was iron. Mother. Why would mother harm Wangqing? Her Majesty said. The maid was incoherent with fear. Said Miss Lin's background wasn't noble enough, that she wasn't worthy of your highness. Her Majesty originally wanted your highness to marry Miss Shen, but Miss Shen dissolved the engagement, so Her Majesty wanted to make Miss Lin also. Silence. The crown prince roared. But it was too late. Those who needed to hear had heard. I stood to the side, my heart a tangle of emotions. So that was it. The Empress had always wanted the crown prince to marry me, not because of me as a person, but because of the Shen family's influence. When I dissolved the engagement, she was dissatisfied with the crown prince marrying Lin Wangqing, so she wanted to eliminate her. What vicious scheming! Your Highness, Xiao Jingyu spoke then. This matter must be reported to His Majesty. The crown prince's face was deathly pale, but he still nodded. That very night, the emperor summoned the crown prince and empress for an emergency audience. What was said, outsiders didn't know, but the next day word spread throughout the capital. The empress was confined to her quarters. The palace maid was executed, and though Lin Wangqing hadn't died, she'd been badly frightened and remained unconscious. The crown prince came to the Shen residence to apologize, saying he'd misunderstood me. I didn't see him, I had stewardly relay. The past is like smoke, no need to mention it again. After the crown prince left, Xiao Jingyu remained. Miss Shen. He sat across from me. What do you make of last night's events? I was silent for a moment. Why did your highness help me? Because you are Xiao Jin's cousin. Xiao Jingyu said mildly, and because this prince cannot abide the empress's methods. Your highness isn't afraid of offending the empress. What is there to fear? Xiao Jingyu smiled. This prince commands troops and guards the borderlands. If the empress wants to move against this prince, she'll need to think twice. I looked at him, suddenly understanding something. Your highness, I asked, you knew about last night's events beforehand, didn't you? Xiao Jingyu raised an eyebrow. Oh. What makes you say so? Because your highness arrived too opportunely. I spoke deliberately. Miss Lin had just had her accident when the crown prince's residence came for me, and your highness arrived almost simultaneously. Without advance preparation, how could the timing be so perfect? Xiao Jingyu was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Clever. So, I continued, did your highness arrange all of this? Not entirely. Xiao Jingyu shook his head. Lin Wangqing's fall into the water was indeed the empress's people's doing. This prince merely went with the flow and exposed the matter. Why? I didn't understand. Why would your highness do this? Because this prince wanted the crown prince to see clearly what kind of person his mother is. Xiao Jingyu said calmly, and to let His Majesty see clearly just how unscrupulous the empress can be. My heart shook. Xiao Jingyu was laying a trap, one aimed at the empress, and I was merely a chess piece he'd used. Miss Shen, don't overthink it. Xiao Jingyu seemed to read my thoughts. This prince helped you with selfish motives, true, but this prince had no intention of harming you. On the contrary, this prince wishes to cooperate with you. Cooperate? Yes, cooperate. Xiao Jingyu stood, walking to the window with his hands behind his back. The Shen family controls the Jiangnan trade routes. The Prince of Zhenbei's household commands the border troops if we join forces the realm. He paused, leaving the sentence unfinished. But I already understood his meaning. Did he want to rebel? No, not rebellion. He wanted to change emperors, Your Highness. I took a deep breath. What you are saying is treason. This prince knows. Xiao Jingyu turned around. Which is why this prince came to ask you. Is the Shen family willing to stand with this prince? I was silent for a long time. This was a dangerous proposal, but also an opportunity. The crown prince was unreliable, the empress even more so. Rather than be used by them, better to actively choose a stronger ally. And Xiao Jingyu commanded troops and possessed strategic acumen. He was indeed a good choice. Your Highness, I raised my head. If the Shen family agrees, what guarantee can you give us? Guarantee, Xiao Jingyu smiled. What this prince can guarantee is that if we succeed, the Shen family will remain the Shen family, subject to no constraint. That is not enough. I shook my head. Your Highness, the Shen family wants not just freedom from constraints, but a seat at the table. Xiao Jingyu narrowed his eyes. What do you want? If we succeed, the Shen family will control the realm's trade routes, free from court interference. I spoke deliberately. Additionally, the Shen family's daughters will not be sacrificed for marriage alliances. The words hung in the air. Xiao Jingyu fell silent. After a long pause, he suddenly laughed heartily. Excellent, well said, Shen Jingji. This prince agrees. He extended his hand. A pleasure doing business. I looked at his hand, hesitated briefly, then finally grasped it. A pleasure doing business. From that day forward, I knew my fate had completely changed. I was no longer the Miss Shen waiting for the crown prince to marry her, but an ally of the Prince of Zhenbei's household, a key player about to participate in a drama of dynastic change. And all of this was because of the crown prince's 7 postponements. Sometimes I wondered if the crown prince hadn't postponed the wedding. If I'd truly married him, what would things be like now? But I quickly stopped wondering, because some things could never be undone. 3 months later, victorious reports came from the border. The Prince of Zhenbei had crushed the northern enemy and recovered 300 li of lost territory. The emperor was overjoyed and issued a decree summoning Xiao Jingyu back to the capital for honors. At the same time, another piece of news spread through the capital. Crown Princess Lin Wanqing had awakened, but her mental state was unstable. She spent her days in a daze, muttering, "Don't kill me." The crown prince was beside himself over this. Court officials also began discussing how the crown prince's fate was too harsh, that he brought misfortune to his wives. I was in the accounting room reconciling ledgers when I heard this news. Miss Steward Lai entered. The Prince of Zhenbei's heir has arrived. I set down the account book. Show him in. Xiao Jin entered with a smile. Cousin, good news. Father has returned to the capital. His Majesty will richly reward our household. That is wonderful. I poured him tea. His Highness has worked hard. The one who worked hard wasn't father, but you. Xiao Jin sat down. These 3 months, the provisions and military funds the Shen family supplied to the border were countless. Cousin, can the Shen family's accounts still hold up? They can hold up, I smiled, as long as His Highness remembers the debt owed to the Shen family. Naturally, Xiao Jin nodded, then suddenly changed the subject. Cousin, father asked me to ask you, are you willing to marry me? My hand jerked, spilling tea. Cousin, what do you mean? Exactly what I said. Xiao Jin was serious. Father says since the Shen family and the Prince of Zhenbei's household are already allies, why not go further and become in-laws? You and I are already cousins. Marriage would be perfectly appropriate. I fell silent. Xiao Jingyu wanted to completely bind the Shen family to the Prince of Zhenbei's chariot. Cousin, I raised my head. What if I am unwilling? Xiao Jin froze, then smiled bitterly. Cousin, you still won't marry me. It is not that I won't, I shook my head. I just feel marriage shouldn't be a transaction. But cousin, Xiao Jin sighed. At our level, marriage has always been a transaction. Do you think common people's marriages aren't transactions? The only difference is what is being traded. He was right, but I still felt unwilling. Cousin, give me some time. All right, I said. Let me think about it. Xiao Jin looked at me, finally nodding. Fine. But cousin, time is short. After father returns to the capital, many things will begin moving forward. You must decide quickly. I sat alone in the accounting room, my mind in chaos. Marrying Xiao Jin was indeed the best choice for the Shen family, but I was unwilling to sacrifice myself again for family interests. Last time, I'd agreed to marry the crown prince because of the late emperor's decree. And what happened? 3 years of waiting, 7 postponements, endless humiliation this time. If I married Xiao Jin, would it be another mistake? As I sat lost in thought, grandmother came. Sir, she sat beside me. What do you think of Xiao Jin's words? What does grandmother think? I countered. Grandmother was silent briefly. From the family's perspective, this is the best choice. But from your personal perspective, sir, you don't like Xiao Jin, do you? I nodded. I don't. Then don't marry him, grandmother grasped my hand. Sir, you are still young. There is no need to rush into marriage. Besides, you can manage the Shen family's holdings yourself. You don't need marriage to secure your position. But grandmother, I smiled bitterly. If I don't marry Xiao Jin, won't the prince of Zhenbei's household turn against us? Grandmother finished. Possibly, but Seer, remember, the Shen family's importance isn't because of whom you marry, but because the Shen family controls Zhongnian's lifelines. No matter how powerful Xiao Jingyu is, he won't dare offend the Shen family lightly. My heart jolted. Grandmother was right. I'd been overestimating my own importance. The Shen family's value wasn't in whom I married, but in the Shen family's own strength. Grandmother, I suddenly asked, if I don't marry, will the Shen family be in danger? Yes. Grandmother was frank. But danger has always existed, sir. Rather than wrong yourself to avoid danger, better to make yourself stronger, strong enough that no one dares move against the Shen family. The words were bold but realistic. Grandmother. I took a deep breath. I understand. That evening, I wrote a letter and had Steward Li deliver it to the Prince of Zhenbei's residence. The letter contained only one sentence. Asterisk, asterisk, the marriage is postponed, but the alliance remains. Asterisk, asterisk, the next day, Xiao Jingyu came to the Shen residence himself. Miss Shen, he sat across from me, his face inscrutable. What do you mean by this? Exactly what it says, I said calmly. Your Highness. The Shen family is willing to continue cooperating with the Prince of Zhenbei's household, but the marriage will not be discussed for now. Why? Because I don't want to marry. I was blunt. Your Highness, you once said the Shen family's daughters wouldn't need to sacrifice themselves for marriage alliances. Now you want me to marry your heir. Isn't that contradictory? Xiao Jingyu fell silent. After a long pause, he suddenly laughed. Good, very good, Shen Qingqi. This prince underestimated you. Your Highness is too kind. No, this prince isn't being kind. Xiao Jingyu stood. This prince admires your spirit and respects your decision. The marriage can be postponed. But Miss Shen, the alliance remains. Don't go back on your word. I won't. After Xiao Jingyu left, grandmother asked me, aren't you afraid he'll turn against us? I am, I answered honestly, but I am more afraid of wronging myself. Grandmother smiled. Now that is my granddaughter. 6 months later, the capital's political winds shifted dramatically. The emperor fell gravely ill. The crown prince assumed regency. Undercurrents surged through the court, and at this moment, the Prince of Zhenbei suddenly submitted a memorial requesting to retire to his ancestral lands. Everyone was shocked. The Prince of Zhenbei commanded troops at the height of his power. Why would he request retirement? But only I knew this was Xiao Jingyu's strategy. He was retreating to advance, making the emperor and crown prince lower their guard, then waiting for the right moment. And that moment came quickly. 2 months later, the emperor passed away. The crown prince ascended the throne, establishing the Yongchang era. The new emperor's first act was settling old scores. He accused several ministers of treason and confiscated their estates, including the Minister of War. Lin Wangqing's father was ruined, and Lin Wangqing herself was consigned to the Cold Palace. When the news arrived, the capital was in uproar, and I received a secret letter from the new emperor at this time. It contained only one sentence, asterisk, asterisk, Miss Shen, I wish to see you. Asterisk, asterisk, I looked at the letter, my heart a tangle of emotions. Why did the new emperor want to see me? To win over the Shen family, or to settle old scores? But regardless, I had to go. The meeting place was the Imperial study. The new emperor sat on the dragon throne looking more mature than before, though the weariness in his eyes couldn't be hidden. Shen Qingqi, he spoke, his voice low. It has been a while. This commoner greets your majesty. I curtsied. Rise, the new emperor waved. Sit, I have something to say to you. I sat, waiting for him to speak. Shen Qingxi, the new emperor suddenly asked, do you hate me? I froze. Why would your majesty say such a thing? The marriage back then. I postponed it repeatedly, and in the end you dissolved it yourself. The new emperor smiled bitterly. Tell me, do you hate me? I was silent briefly. Number, truly, truly. I looked at him. Your majesty, what happened then is past. This commoner is doing well now. There is no need to revisit it. The new emperor stared at me for ages, then suddenly sighed. Shen Qingqi, I owe you an apology. Back then I was too suspicious, too weak. I hurt you. Your majesty, let me finish. The new emperor interrupted. I know it is too late to say this now, but I still want to tell you. When I postponed the wedding, it wasn't because I didn't want to marry you. I had no choice. He paused. Mother always opposed my marrying you, saying your merchant background made you unworthy of the heir apparent's position. Though father arranged the engagement, mother constantly obstructed it. I was too weak then, didn't dare defy mother, so I kept postponing, hoping she'd relent. But I never imagined mother would move against Lin Wanqing. The new emperor smiled bitterly. After that incident, I finally understood mother didn't care whom I married. She wanted a daughter-in-law she could control. And you, Shen Qingxi, you were too independent, too spirited. Mother couldn't control you. I listened, my heart a tangle of emotions. So that was it, your majesty, I said softly. The past is past, no need to revisit it. But I still want to make amends, the new emperor said earnestly. Shen Qingxi, I want to confer upon you the title of Imperial Noble Consort. I froze. Imperial Noble Consort. Yes, Imperial Noble Consort, the new emperor stood, walking towards me. Shen Qingqi, I know you are closely connected to the Prince of Jembei's household. I know you lack neither glory nor wealth, but I still want to give you a title, a position, so all under heaven know that you've always been in my heart. I looked at him and suddenly smiled. Your Majesty. I shook my head. This commoner doesn't need it. Why? The new emperor was puzzled. Because this commoner doesn't love your Majesty. I was blunt. When this commoner agreed to the marriage, it was because of the late emperor's decree, because of family duty. But now this commoner is free. I needn't wrong myself for anyone anymore. So if your Majesty truly wishes to make amends, please grant the Shen family an imperial decree, allowing the Shen family to engage in commerce for generations, free from court interference. The new emperor was silent for a long time, finally nodding. Very well, I agree. 3 days later the decree came. The Shen family was designated the realm's premier merchant house, permitted to engage in commerce for generations, free from court interference. And I was finally completely free, dear rational thinkers. The story's core game has concluded here. Let me summarize the story's underlying logic in one sentence. So true freedom isn't escaping the cage. It is refusing to become anyone's bargaining chip. Asterisk, asterisk. Dear rational thinkers, the story's core game has concluded here. Let me summarize this story's underlying logic in one sentence. True freedom isn't escaping the cage. It is refusing to become anyone's bargaining chip.